I wonder if we don't start to see a shift back to Kareem Hunt being the main ball carrier as we saw this past week against the Texans once they failed on back-to-back runs on 3rd and 4th and 1. Hunt took over from that point, and he kind of, again, looked like the same old Mr. Kareem Hunt that we saw earlier in the season. So I just wonder if this is like a turning point to where he becomes the lead guy and Pacheco becomes the spell running back looking for the big play.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
5 things to watch here on KC Sports Network, getting you ready for Chiefs versus Steelers, Week 17 of the NFL season. Obviously, a big opportunity for the Chiefs. They are 1 win away from securing the 1 seed in the AFC, the biggest prize that you can possibly get in the regular season when it comes to, improving your chances of winning the Super Bowl, completely avoiding a game altogether. Pretty valuable. Chiefs did it the hard way last year. Would be nice if they could just, maybe have 1 less game to deal with this season. I am here with Maddie Lane. You're going to hear from the guys at Only Weird Games. You're going to hear from Benny Heisler with Benny's Picks. Going to be a lot of fun. Merry Christmas to you all, and thank you for listening. Matthew Lane, Merry Christmas to you as well, my friend. How are we feeling?
Yep. Merry Christmas to you. We're feeling good. We're ready to get this game going. The quick turnaround for football stuff, not super fun, but also it's nice to have it right up and ready to go again. We're getting a lot of Chiefs games in very few days here, which is nice. Even though we'd rather probably be sitting with our families than having to watch Chiefs on the TV or in a car like Kent let us know that he did last year.
I was going to say, I'm not really sure I want to be watching a game I'm not really sure I'm ready for another game this quickly, but that's okay because you'll get 10 weeks.
Listen, the Chiefs lock up this 1 seed. I get a lot of draft guide work done in the next month. So,
buddy, same, man. Have I told you I'm pretty sure I've got the QBs about stacked, and I've got about 7 of the write-ups done. Have I told you that I have I've already got
you guys in your early write-ups.
we've got pretty good sample sizes on a lot of these guys, but that's neither here nor there. If they win this game, maybe we'll
waste 5 things topic.
We're gonna do a draft show. We're just gonna do a draft show. If the Chiefs,
we have 3 labs before the next Chiefs game after this one, so just saying.
Things you love to see. Just gonna say, so Chiefs take care of business so we can get into the draft mode. But yeah, we're gonna give you 2 things to watch. Then we'll hear from Benny's Picks and Only Weird Games after this. But we kick things off, and we'll start on the offensive side of the ball for one of our things to watch. The Chiefs' run game's not been particularly good. You might be able to attribute some of that to the recent offensive line shuffling that they've had. The run game has taken some steps back in recent weeks, and it's something that, especially in a game like this against the Pittsburgh Steelers on short rest, you'd like to see them get the run game going a little bit in this game.
Yeah. And so, here's some straight up numbers, back up from weeks 1 through 12. The Chiefs were 1st in success rate when rushing the football. They were 7th in EPA per rush when running the football. Week 12 on, they have fallen to 13th in success rate, or they are 13th in success rate and 17th in EPA per play. The run game just simply hasn't been as good here down the stretch. And there's a lot of reasons probably for it. The offensive line shuffling, the struggles of the passing attack being consistent, hitting the ball downfield and really providing a balanced attack, so on and so forth. There's plenty of stuff that probably plays a role in this happening. But it's just noticeable that this Chiefs run game isn't quite hitting at the same level it was earlier in the year. And I think a big thing was the hope was Isaiah Pacheco coming back was going to mean fresher legs for Kareem Hunt, and it was going to mean fresher legs for Isaiah Pacheco. And these 2 guys would be this 2-headed monster. And instead, what it's kind of done is, whether on purpose or not, but it's kind of taken both guys a little bit more out of the game plan. It's led to them splitting some carries, and whether it's been some, maybe questionable running from one guy, lack of explosives from the other, just it hasn't quite clicked as much since week 12. So this is a tough test against this Pittsburgh Steelers, but one that the Ravens just had a lot of success on the ground with. Different rushing attack, I know, but they had a lot of success on the ground. Hopefully the Chiefs can follow suit and really pick this rushing game back up, because that was a big part of this offense to start the season.
Yeah. And I feel like, when this team was, some of their early, the early model for this team winning was, having a lot of positive gains, eliminating a lot of the negative yardage, putting drives together and putting themselves in very good, manageable third down situations. And Patrick Mahomes doing Patrick Mahomes things. And you've seen, like, I think the offense start to pick things up a little bit more, be a little bit more well-rounded, and maybe not leaning on the run game as much as they might have been. Like, I felt like, hey, maybe like early in the season, there was a little bit of run game success, defense with Justin Watson looking pretty good, doing some good things there, right? Without Justin Watson, defense has taken some steps back. And, the run game, that hasn't been as much in the formula of late. But, I feel like, in a short week, like, you want to see this team, try to run the football a little bit, try to move shorten that game up a little bit with the run game a little bit too. And if they can have some run success, like, I think that can be a nice little contributing factor in this team's winning the game. This is a good run defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're top 10 in rushing yards per game allowed. Be that, sure, a little bit of that game script can be a game script at times, but just raw rushing numbers, they're number 7 in the National Football League in allowing rushing yards. So this is a big challenge, and it's a pretty good front. This is a talented front with Keanu Benton, Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, T.J. Watt. This is Alex Highsmith. This is a challenging rush defense to try to go up against.
Well, I think, yeah, and a big part of it has been the past few weeks. I think the run game has had to get a little bit more vanilla as the season's gone on because of some of the offensive struggles and the passing game. And they've been trying to get more to this under center play action stuff. So they've had to run from under the center a little bit more. They've gotten into, with Joe Tooney moving on to tackle these past 2 weeks, I think it's limited their ability to run some of their gap stuff. They don't have quite the same confidence in running some of their power stuff, some of their counter stuff with Caliendo at left guard as they did Tooney. So I do think the run game's gotten a little bit more vanilla, but I think maybe the biggest part of it, if we kind of look at the sample size we're looking at, Isaiah Pacheco just isn't as consistent of a runner as Mr. Kareem Hunt is for this Chiefs team, right? Like, he just doesn't consistently turn out the same amount of yards. He gets 1 yard when you can maybe get 3 or 4 from a different player. He might get 4 or 5 yards when you could get 7 or 8. The vision isn't always there. The rhythm, the patience, the tempo of his running isn't always the same. And so it feels like as the Chiefs have kind of shifted more to a 50-50 split, or even giving Pacheco more of the carries, it's lost some of the efficiency. There's always the threat, or a bigger threat, of a dynamic play, of an explosive run, but they're not coming at a high enough clip to be worth the inconsistency on some of the other carries. So I wonder if we don't start to see a shift back to Kareem Hunt being the main ball carrier, as we saw this past week against the Texans, once they failed on back-to-back runs on 3rd and 4th and 1. Hunt took over from that point, and he kind of, again, looked like the same old Mr. Kareem Hunt that we saw earlier in the season. So I just wonder if this is like a turning point to where he becomes the lead guy and Pacheco becomes the spell running back looking for the big play.
Yeah, if you look at kind of just some of their numbers, last week, 11 carries, 55 yards for Kareem Hunt, a long of 20 yards, 9 carries, 26 yards for Pacheco. So even if you take away the explosive run for Kareem Hunt, on that, that 20-yard run, like, you're still looking at very comparable numbers if even you're removing the most explosive play from them. So, like the short yardage stuff, like, there's no reason for Isaiah Pacheco to be the short yardage back at any point the rest of the season. Like, it needs to be Kareem Hunt in those situations. So, I'd like to see them run the ball a little bit more just in this game. If they can find some success, like, let's do that. Let's get that going a little bit more. Just trying to make it through this game with, presumably, a 4 interior. I call it the 4 guard offense, right? You got four interior offensive linemen on your front, on your line, and so they gotta take care of business there. We can move on to the defensive side of the ball, and it appears as though we're not going to be seeing Chris Jones in this Thursday matchup. Obviously, a massive loss for the Chiefs. That could be a big challenge for this team. How do you think the Chiefs navigate life without Chris Jones, if indeed Chris Jones does not play this Thursday game, or this Wednesday game, Christmas Day game against the Pittsburgh Steelers?
It's going to be tough, right? You're going to lose your best pass rusher, arguably probably your best defensive player, but if not, like, one of your best 2 defensive players probably isn't playing in this game. And you're going to rely on a defensive line unit that hadn't been great this year, like, overall, to continue to create pressure at a high enough clip that it doesn't become a lot of pressure on the secondary to keep up with a downfield, very vertical heavy base passing attack. And Chris Jones, I think we'd all said it, had been playing some of his better football over this recent stretch. It seemed like he was playing, I don't want to say selfish, but a little bit more controlled. He was being a little bit more, okay, that's fine. I will eat the double team and stay in this general area and let some other guys win one-on-ones rather than trying to win every play himself, regardless of the double team or not. And it looked like it was leading to a better overall performance of the Chiefs defensive line, right? So they are going to be missing that player. They do have somebody with a similar skill set, not near as good, but a similar skill set in Tershawn Wharton. So they should be able to provide some interior quick pressure with him. You have Charles Omenihu back, who flashes some really good pass rush reps. George Karlaftis is coming off of back-to-back weeks where he's been very good. So can those two edges plus Wharton on the interior keep up that level of success without Chris Jones drawing so much attention up the middle? Or is it going to prove to be too big of a deal? Is it going to prove to be too much that he was taking away so much attention that it was allowing these other guys to win, and now they just simply have no chance? Like, we haven't really had to deal with this as Chiefs fans for a while because Chris Jones has been, knock on wood, really healthy throughout most of this tenure for the Chiefs, and he does always command a lot of attention from the opposing team.
Well, I think if what can you do if you don't have a 4-man pass rush? We got to add. You got to blitz. You've got to send pressure. You've got to get creative there. And that's, the Chiefs are going to have to do a little bit of that, I think, just without Chris Jones, even if the 4-man pass rush is cooking a little bit. I still think they're going to have some challenges that they're just going to have to send some guys. They're going to have to get creative with their pressure game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, I think one thing, though, is we know this team is just, they're fighting and scratching and clawing to get that 1 seed so they can get this big rest, right? And we saw last week, I think you saw the team around Patrick Mahomes really rally and elevate their game across the board because they needed to, because Patrick Mahomes was hurt. I could see this being a galvanizing moment for the rest of that defensive line room. Like, this could be a big turning point for this team where this defensive line is ready and excited to take on the challenge of playing without Chris Jones and trying not to lose a step without him, and really using this as an opportunity and a challenge for that defensive line without him to really take a big step. And it could be a turning point for this season too, because we could point to that moment and say, hey, look, the defensive line had to play without Chris Jones this week. Week 17 against the Steelers with the 1 seed on the line, and they went out and they put together a great performance, and that wound up carrying them through the entirety of the regular, of the postseason. Like, that wound up being a turning point for this group because they knew they had to rise to the occasion, and then things weren't the same after that. Like, I think this could be a challenge. Like, this could be, an opportunity for that group that needs to, the role players, the secondary players around Chris Jones to really rally together and put together a good performance.
And if there was a team that you were going to have to kind of like run this out against, this might be the right one, right? The Steelers don't have a great offensive line. Specifically their tackles, Dan Moore and Broderick Jones have given up a lot of pressures, a lot of sacks this year. If you were looking for an opponent around the NFL that it was like, hey, you might lose Chris Jones for, can somebody else get pressure? This might be a pretty good matchup. Between the two tackles, they've given up 18 sacks this year. They've given up a ton of pressure. And even on the interior, it's a lot of young guys, a lot of rookies that are 2 rookies playing in there that have been good and bad, in stretches like all rookies are. So this would be the right matchup to say, hey, we're challenging you guys to come out and play your best game right now. We need you because your star is maybe unavailable for this game or likely unavailable for this game. So yeah, it's a good challenge for them, and it's probably a good building block for them as they go into the playoffs so they can come out of this with some level of success for these guys.
100% agree, man. This is, and like, look, I think Steve Spagnuolo will be unloading the clip and trying to help these guys. Like, I mean, they're not going to put themselves at the detriment of the postseason, but I really do think that this is a game where it's all hands on deck, trying to just push through the finish line. You felt the vibes after that first game. They're going to go try to take care of business on a Thursday night or a Wednesday. It's the same timeline as a Thursday. That's why I keep calling it a Thursday. It's the same window of time. It's a Saturday, Wednesday flip instead of a Sunday, Thursday flip, but it's short rest. And I think they're just trying to push through the finish line. Spags, this defensive line, this whole group, they're just all going to have to rise to the occasion and take care of business.
No, absolutely. I'm with you. And so, yeah, we'll keep our eyes on that. And now we're going to do a quick break before we check in with some of the other guys here at the KC Sports Network.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com. the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Beef of the week here on 5 Things. Matt Verram, Tucker Franklin, giving you our beef of the week presented by Batchelder Family Farms. And if you want the best beef, go visit batchelderfamilyfarms.com and get the best beef around. Go visit them at the Overland Park Farmers Market, the City Market Farmers Market, or you can go to their store, 2810 South Prospect Avenue in Belton, Missouri. Go check them out Wednesday to Saturday. Anytime they'll take you in there at Batchelder Family Farms. Matt, when we think about beef of the week this week, not only do we have this beef, I think players have this beef.
Yeah.
We got a beef with the NFL. Why the hell are they playing on Christmas? Why the hell are they playing 3 games in 11 days?
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the deal. Like, the 3 games in 11 days thing, like, look, I understand the teams do that when they play on Thursday nights in, like, week 5. I get that.
Yeah.
This is week 17. This is ridiculous to ask teams to do this late in the year. Okay. And on top of that, it's like a round robin between Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Houston, and Kansas City. Like, there's like, these 4 teams, screw them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, my biggest gripe with this is that it's a Wednesday. I understand the Neanderthal who's like, well, hey, man, it's a Sunday to a Thursday. It's 2 short weeks in a row. That is what you don't have when it's Sunday, Thursday. Okay? It's 2 short weeks in a row. They've got to go out to Pittsburgh and play this game. Pittsburgh, to their credit, is coming off of 2 road games, including a divisional game in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like, this is ridiculous. And I'll tell you right now, you better settle up, because when Christmas comes on a Tuesday, they're going to play on Tuesday too. How much you want to bet? Because they'll just go, well, what the hell? Sunday, Friday, Tuesday. That's what they'll do. I will bet you any amount of money that the next time Christmas is on a Tuesday, you're getting that. And they're just going to go, well, guess what? Christmas tradition. And now you're going to get games every year on Christmas. And like, look, sure, as a fan, like, it's nice to watch a game, but these players, this is insane to ask these guys to do this. It's late in the year. It's 2 short weeks in a row. All 4 of these teams are going to the playoffs. Like, they've already got enough on their plate. It's insane. It's insane. You're not going to get the best of any of these teams because the weeks are so short. Like, it's a bad job by the NFL. It's greedy as hell for a sport and a league that, my God, how much more money could you possibly need? Like, what, is Goodell picking up his couch cushions looking for a couple nickels? I think he's all right. Like, it's ridiculous. Give Netflix a New Year's Day package or something. Like,
Yeah.
There's no reason that they can't figure this out another way.
I agree. And for a league that makes it seem like they are all for player safety, to have something like this come about where it actually impacts the player safety and then turn a blind eye to it is not abnormal, right? But again, it's just one of those things where we see that the league is showing their true colors again. And this also is interesting too. The Chiefs have had a bye week in week 6. The Chiefs got an early bye week. The NFL knew that they were going to do this to the Chiefs, and they gave them an early bye week. I know that the injuries list isn't as long as like other teams are for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're still dealing with some pretty significant injuries. Chris Jones, everybody, Patrick Mahomes still dealing with that ankle injury, but like, you got to be tempted. I mean, just to kind of stick it to the NFL and in this circumstance, in this situation, because man, it just really doesn't seem like they care about anything except money in this regard. And I think that, like, we know that already about the NFL, right? Like, that's not surprising. That's not shocking, but they continually show it. The players union, Chris Jones already said he's going to talk to the players union. I would be surprised if they're able to get anything done because they just want to get like less padded practices is all they.
Can we get 1 less hours of OTAs?
Yeah. That's all they want to complain and kind of bargain with. But I don't know. It's very frustrating. Matt and I have a beef with it. The players have a beef with it. There's just so much beef going on with the NFL playing on Christmas. I think you bring up a good point. They're going to play it on Tuesday. They're going to play it on probably Friday. I think Friday is Christmas next year.
Thursday. So we're getting
It's Thursday.
wrong. Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Buckle up.
Dick. Matt.
I just like the whole thing's a joke. And by the way, if you have any question about whether the league cares about player safety, just know that in about 2 years the schedule is going to be 18 games. So just settle in.
Right.
That's coming. Okay. The second this thing went to 17, it was always going to 18.
Yep.
And the players will get like a ham sandwich in return. So like just understand that that's the reality of it. And look, I'm not crying on my suit for the players. They get paid plenty of money to go out and play football. Okay, I get it, but and like they signed up for this whole deal. They signed up for it. They could sit out. They could, but at the same point, sometimes there's just things that flat out aren't right. Like this is just right. This is a joke.
I think it is too. That's going to do it for Brief of the Week here on 5 Things. Go ahead and send it back for more 5 Things.
Now it's time to head on down to Benny, where we're going to take on Benny's picks, and we're going to make sure we write all these down.
Manny, thank you, sir. What's going on, everybody? Ben Heisler here, going over here on 5 Things with our favorite underdog plays for Week 16 on Christmas Day between the Chiefs and the Steelers. And hopefully all of you were here with us last week where we ended up hitting on all of our picks. So if you combine all of those over on Underdog, you ended up getting a 10 times payout. Perfect ahead of the holidays. And if you didn't catch on then, you still can. You can also get up to $1,000 in bonus cash with your first deposit. Just make sure you guys use that promo code KCSN. And then once you're on, you can go ahead and tail any or some, or maybe even none. Maybe you just want to go the opposite direction of us. Either way, that is totally fine. We just want you to be involved and having some fun on Underdog the rest of the way. All right. We got 3 plays plus a free bonus pick over on Underdog for Christmas Day, and that includes one Patrick Mahomes. All he needs to do is clear 0.5 total yards. That is your free play. You can get it factor in with any of your plays over on Underdog this week. And again, once all of these come together, we're looking at a payout of 9.4x, just under that 10x bonus that we had last week. So let's get right into it. Starting with Pat Freiermuth on the Pittsburgh Steelers side. I like him to go higher than 29.5 receiving yards this week. We know the Chiefs tight ends defense has not been anything to write home about. They are dead last in the NFL when it comes to yardage allowed, both on a per game basis, 78.1 receiving yards per game to the tight end position. And they're also at, I think, 1,090 total yards on 94 receptions. They've been targeted 123 times. I believe that it's third most in the NFL. So when you're game planning against Kansas City's defense, they do a lot of things well. We've seen that. But slowing down the tight end position has not been one of those things this year. Freiermuth, meanwhile, he's not going to be a high volume guy, but certainly get some red zone opportunities if you want to consider the higher than 0.5 receiving or rushing touchdowns. That remains in play. But again, the numbers add up here between the Chiefs' inability to slow down tight ends. Freiermuth has cleared this game on average over his last 3 games, averaging about 35.5 yards per game at the position. So we're getting 29.5. He's done that against some tougher defenses in the middle of the field. And that's the area where the Chiefs almost kind of funnel some of those tight end opportunities. They limit the big play. And Freiermuth should be in a really nice position to go ahead and go higher than his projected number on the board at Underdog. Now let's go with an over on the Kansas City side. And a running back that I feel like it's been a bit forgotten with Isaiah Pacheco coming back. You saw Kareem Hunt get the touchdown last week, but we need to talk about Samaje Perine. And the way in which they have used him throughout this year, it seems like whenever they need a pass-catching running back to make a big play late in the game, Perine seems to be that guy. It's a Steelers defense that has been okay against running backs. They've allowed, their average yards per attempt against backs has been okay this year. But Perine only having to clear 9.5 receiving yards, even in a limited role, you guys, he's done it in 5 consecutive games, averaging 12.4 receiving yards per game. I like the matchup for him, especially if we're looking at a situation where the Chiefs do have to get some 2-minute drill opportunities going down the field. He's going to get some play on the field. And so I think Perine makes sense. I love the fact that even with volume or lack of volume, he continues to hit this number, and Underdog is just not adjusted on the number. So I like Perine to go higher than 9.5 receiving yards here on Christmas Day. And then the last one that we're going to go with this week is Xavier Worthy. Now, the numbers for Worthy have been really, really good, especially over the last few weeks. It's been great to see him more involved in the offense. We saw a couple weeks ago just have his best game. We've actually used him throughout the course of the season, and he's coming off of back-to-back 11 target games, ended up with 13 receptions in those games. He's had no less than 5 receptions over his last 4 games and no less than 4 receptions, going all the way back to that loss against Buffalo back on November 17th. But I'm going to fade him this week. I'm going to take Xavier Worthy to go under 4.5 receptions in this matchup. Again, if you think collectively over the course of the season, Worthy's only been averaging about 3.4 receptions per game. The Steelers coming into this matchup are going to account for him. He's right now their most targeted receiver on the board. And I think, if anything, it's an opportunity for that defense to adjust. And plus, we've also seen Worthy be used in the backfield as well. One of our favorite bets from last week en route to that 10x play was Xavier Worthy clearing 1.5 yards on the ground, which he was able to do. I think in this scenario, you're going to still find some targets for Worthy. You have to. But Pittsburgh, to their credit, has done a pretty good job this year of sometimes really trying to limit opportunities for your number one guy. And Worthy right now is showing like he can be the Chiefs' number one guy. And if you're Mahomes, you're not afraid by that. You're not daunted by that. And so he'll spread it out. Hopkins will get some looks. Kelsey will get some looks. Maybe Noah Gray sees a few more targets. We've talked about Samaje Perine in the passing game, Kareem Hunt. If they're targeting and bracketing Worthy to make sure that the big play doesn't happen, Mahomes is going to be perfectly content with that. And then maybe you even consider going on the higher for his completions as well. So the 3-pack factored in with Patrick Mahomes to go higher than 0.5 total yards, like Pat Freiermuth to go higher than 29.5 receiving yards this week, like Samaje Perine to go higher than 9.5 receiving yards, and then Xavier Worthy, like him at under 4.5 receptions. Plus that free play, you get up to 9.4x if all of those plays end up hitting over on Underdog. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, whatever you're celebrating this week. Hopefully it is a special one for you, your family, your loved ones, anybody else that you are with. And with that, Batty, back to you, my friend.
Thank you, Benny. I got those marked down. I am ready. I need, kind of make up for some lost moolah here during Christmas season. So I got those marked down. This is good. These are good. All right. For our last two, short week, we got things going a little, travel, family, everybody's seeing different stuff. So now you got 2 things from Casey Lab, you got Benny's picks. Now you're going to get 2 things from Only Weird Games. They're going to talk a little bit about the wide receiver and cornerbacks matchups on both sides of the ball.
All right, we've got the superior 2 of the 3 for Only Weird Games here. Josh is off playing hooky, doing something. I'm not sure what exactly. I believe he's working on his tan lines, but I can't say that for sure. So Nate, it comes to you and me to talk about a few things. I want to do one on offense, one on defense for our 5 things this week. And in terms of the offensive side of the ball, I've already written about them last week, but they're going to be, in my opinion, the story of the postseason, and that is the Chiefs' wide receiver triumvirate, as it were, of Xavier Worthy, DeAndre Hopkins, and Hollywood Brown. And I said them in that order for a reason.
Ooh.
Because if you look at snap count,
Yes.
and you look at targets,
Uh-huh.
one can make an argument that in an offense that doesn't necessarily have a pure wide receiver one could say wide receiver 1A is Xavier Worthy, with if the game, their last game against the Texans is any indication this first time back, maybe the effort's going to be to have Hollywood Brown be wide receiver 1B and DeAndre Hopkins 1C and the break glass in case of emergency guy. What do you think of that?
I do think there's something legitimate to that. Also just because I think, especially for this game against the Steelers, right? Everybody's bodies, have to recover so quickly. It's like, well, why don't we just use the young rookie who's really, really fast and really, really dynamic, and why don't we just feed him the ball? And that was successful against the Texans. I don't know why it wouldn't be as successful against the Steelers if he creates that much separation. It's interesting that, like, when the Chiefs anticipate a team playing man, hey, as you've said all season, Hollywood Brown, your man cover beater. And then you have your contested ball, trust him on third downs. I mean, just what a toe tap near the sidelines.
It was so pretty.
So I do think, and one of the things that I'm sure you noticed too, Seth, is like they showed a little sprinkle of this, but like all 4 to one side or all 3 to one side with Travis Kelce.
Got
And
shivers in my spine thinking about it.
And it's just sort of pick your poison at that point. So we've seen, Hollywood Brown in a postseason game. We've seen DeAndre Hopkins in a postseason game. But if you're trying to maximize how much Xavier Worthy can do between now and, let's say, the divisional round, if the Chiefs win on Wednesday, then yes, feed him the ball, let him be wide receiver 1, and then you can kind of be more matchup dependent, whoever you play in the postseason. But I do kind of like that idea of, what you're going to get from DeAndre Hopkins, so you'll use him sparingly. But at the same time, they really do need to force feed Xavier Worthy and get Hollywood Brown into the mix as much as possible.
Absolutely. And I love that you framed it in terms of matchup dependent, because I think that's going to be much more of a big deal week in and week out in the playoffs. Hopefully following a bye week, we'll see how everything goes. The Patriots couldn't even do one thing right. But hopefully the Chiefs take care of business against the Steelers. And I love the idea. They're such different receivers that in theory, no matter what team you play, what defense they like to play, what their corners are like, whether they excel in man, zone, whether they're physical, whether they're fast, whatever, you've got a guy for that. It's like, oh man, their corners are really fast, really tight in coverage, but they're a little undersized. We've got a guy for that. Their corners are really physical in press. They're really good in zone, but they're not great man. We got a guy for that. They don't have great downfield speed. We've got a guy for that if him and Mahomes can ever figure it out. So in terms of the Chiefs taking care of business on Christmas, I'll go a little bit quicker on this one. The defensive side of the ball, we've seen an up and down Chiefs defense this year. It's not as dominant as it was last year. It's still solid. It's pretty good. They've had some stuff with corner. They still haven't figured that out. Like the best 11 thing. It might include Jaden Hicks. It might.
It should.
It should. He's a massive human who seems to have a knack for making plays. So one thing that I'm curious about with some of the issues they've had at corner outside of Trent McDuffie, who's an absolute stud, is dealing with the deep ball and dealing with kind of moonshots down the field. Did I say moonshot? Moonball? Who's their corner? Russ Wilson.
I think it's technically moonball, according to friend Brooke Pryor. At least that's how it was described to me. But yeah, one of the best moonball throwers in all of the world, Russell Wilson. And of course, he has the most athletic, freak-like athlete at the position in George Pickens, which we think we're going to see on Wednesday, Seth.
Yep. And that's, in theory, that's a bad matchup for what the corners have struggled with this year is contested catch 40 yards down the field. Bleep it. I'm throwing it down the field. Hey, they're going to come down with it. It was 3rd and 20, but who cares? Do you see Spags changing anything up in how he tries to handle Pickens? Do you see him saying, look, this is, hey, Josh Williams, you go beat the crap out of him at the line of scrimmage. You're huge. He's huge. Let's see if you can get him to say or do something stupid and get in trouble. Is that the route you'd go there?
I would. And I think if you're a Chiefs fan, you got to be praying to the Lord on Christmas Day that this is not a Najee Johnson game. It's just not. Based on the size of George Pickens, the athleticism, this is why you have Joshua Williams on the roster, right? To be long and rangy, and he has good speed. Not the best ball skills, but just be in the picture.
Right.
Don't get mossed. I think Najee Johnson has a chance to get mossed if the opportunity presents itself. Yes, maybe repeatedly. For Trent McDuffie, it'll be fascinating to see, like, will he get some run at George Pickens just from, maybe playing in the slot? And another matchup I would just point out is if you want Justin Reed in the box for, tackling, obviously being like a potential third linebacker, Jaden Hicks, Pat Freiermuth, Freiermuth has been just as effective recently as George Pickens has been. And the Chiefs, as we know, have struggled with tight ends. So
they have.
What you hope is that Joshua Williams plays the majority of the snaps, can be, at least a match up, match George Pickens to basically a draw, and hopefully Trent McDuffie will have a third interception, and maybe Jaden Hicks will not let Pratt Freiermuth go all up and down the field on the Chiefs to keep the game close.
Absolutely. Interception machine, Trent McDuffie, and massive human, Jaden Hicks, just locking it down. So those are the things we're looking for. Those are 2 of our 5 things. We're going to send it back to whoever's doing all this for KCSN, because unlike Josh, I'm not a professional, and I didn't think to ask beforehand.
Thank you, fellas. Those are big matchups to watch, especially with Pickens coming back and then Hollywood Brown coming back last week and going on now. Big things to watch on both sides of the ball there. It's going to be exciting. And that's going to do it. That is 5 different things for you guys to watch in this Chiefs versus Steelers matchup coming up on Christmas Day. And as always, we will be there. We will be on the KC Sports Network YouTube channel live as soon as the game is over with our post-game show to wrap it up. The Chiefs hopefully winning and locking up that 1 seed. Even if they lose, we will be there to drown away our Christmas sorrows on the middle of the day. So we appreciate you guys as always for listening. Make sure you check out the post-game show, and we will catch you guys after.